I've noticed this mic has been struggling picking up some of the tall people in the room, so I'm going to do my best here this morning. Good morning, commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity. We're coming to you today with an important message, and once again discussing getting an environmental study done for Highway 30 between Lisbon and Dubuque. At various times in life, we're faced with a fork in the road, and we have to decide what path we're going to take. The journey is comprised of decisions along the way that pave our legacy and define who we are. Iowa as a state is built on a legacy of small towns with unparalleled culture, history, and work ethic. And today we are once again faced with an opportunity to make an investment in the future of Highway 30. The first step, of course, is the investment in that environmental study. Eastern Iowa was the originator, as mentioned, of discussions about the gas tax, also originator of the Highway 30 Coalition, and also the originator of Transportation Day at the Capitol. We've had tireless efforts to improve transportation throughout the state of Iowa. And unlike some presentations from the Highway 30 Coalition in the past, we're not going to focus so much on the past and focus on data or the unfulfilled commitments to complete this project, but we really want to focus on the future. What we know is that the data of the traffic counts, population, and the need for the Iowa 80 relief route support the decision to expand Highway 30, and that the Governor of Iowa, Branstad, has been on the record early this year supporting the treatment of Highway 20 and 30 as equals. He also has expressed support of expansion of Highway 30 to a 4-lane ahead of expansion of Interstate 80 to a 6-lane. Our position is that this data alone should be enough to justify the completion of the Eastern Highway 30 corridor. And yet, once again, we're asking for your assistance. Currently, the state of Illinois is scheduled to complete their environmental study for the 20 miles of Highway 30 from Clinton to Interstate 88 just west of Morrison on June 17th of next year. The federal penitentiary in Thompson, Illinois is scheduled to open in 2017. And Highway 30 is to be a priority 4-lane road for the state of Illinois. Their project will be shovel ready. We also know that the two leading presidential candidates are both committing to provide billions of dollars to funding for transportation and infrastructure, and that our state often has projects come in under budget. I think $35 million last year and maybe as much as $11 million so far this year. These funds get allocated to shovel-ready projects. We're concerned that Highway 30 will not be eligible for these funds unless the project environmental study has been completed. Some have said that Iowa and Illinois are in a waiting game to see who moves first on that section of corridor there. We believe Iowa should embrace their history of being a leader and force Illinois to act rather than being forced into action and finding ourselves behind the 8 ball. One suggestion is that a super 2-lane road will meet Highway 30's needs for the future, and we do not agree. To the east, Chicago is the 3rd largest handler of freight in the world and home to the largest transfer center in the United States. What will be the impact of a 4-lane road coming into Iowa from Chicago, only to be reduced to a Super 2 just 15 miles across the border? The 38 miles between DeWitt and Lisbon would be under a terrific amount of stress if that were to happen. We are fearful of that outcome and what it will mean for the safety of Iowa residents, and a large portion of the traffic will continue to be forced onto the freight corridor as opposed to serving the local needs. True connectivity across state lines of our 4-lane roads should be the priority in making these decisions. Highway 30 needs to have its status elevated to that of a DOT priority road. For many years, some of the communities along this section of Highway 30 have resisted or even been opposed to the idea of improving Highway 30 to 4 lanes because they did not want to see the traffic diverted around their communities. Many of these communities and local businesses there rely upon the traffic through those communities for their success. With the modern option of urban highways that can pass through a community and address the needs, these communities will have the option of through traffic, and the local opposition to this project has been stripped away. Rural Iowa has been, excuse me. Right, thank you. We went minimal on our presentation, so I appreciate you listening to our words. Rural Iowa has been evolving for many years and not always for the better. Small family farm is now less likely to be able to support rural residents as the sole family income source. For many, the days of dad working in the fields and working with livestock while mom tends the garden and keeps the home are behind us. Those days have been exchanged for dad taking supporting employment and mom taking a full-time career outside of the home, or potentially even selling the family farm to relocate to better employment opportunities. A spring 2016 Eastern Iowa laborship study showed that people are willing to commute upwards of an hour to quality employment as long as they're able to travel a 4-lane road. It is becoming harder and harder to earn a living wage and have a fulfilling career in rural areas without connectivity. There's been a lot of discussion on the national level about the success of economic recovery from the recession, and in metropolitan areas, I believe that exists. But ask people in the rural, non-metro communities about economic recovery from the recession, and they'll likely respond, what recovery? Without appropriate transportation infrastructure, we'll continue to see rural loss of population as people move closer to jobs that are available, furthering the transfer of economic opportunity from rural to urban areas. Many of those who do choose to remain in these rural areas are age 65 and older, receiving disability and Social Security checks, and that kind of paints a bleak future for the rural communities of Iowa. This phenomenon has been created in part by the focusing of investment in transportation infrastructure around our urban centers rather than to continue to expand the networks that tie our state together. The result has been slower growth in rural areas than the national and state averages, and even population loss. The state of Iowa has lost 2 U.S. representatives because we are not keeping up in the rural areas. We've experienced the shift of jobs toward urban areas and witnessed countless school consolidations, causing students to have to be transported greater distance across unimproved roads. Services continue to be reduced in these areas and property taxes are forced to go up. Economic growth has been limited to metro areas because the exodus of young people leaving the rural areas to pursue jobs in developed areas, and there's been an economic underclass created. I've heard it said that the role of interstates and safety and volume, the role of interstates are safety and volume, while the role of non-interstate roads are economic development. I would also argue that the role of non-interstate roads include preservation of communities, culture, and existing job opportunities that exist. One community that has felt the deep impact of transportation infrastructure investment happening elsewhere is the city of Clinton, Iowa. In the 1960s, Clinton was booming, had a population of over 37,000, and at that time, Highway 30 was the interstate corridor into the state of Iowa. Ever since the development of Interstate 80, major employers have left the Clinton area and continue to relocate to areas with less expensive shipping options and transportation options, and a larger area from which to draw employees because of that transportation development. Today, Clinton's population is under 27,000, largely due to those infrastructure improvements pulling people away. Despite the challenges, Clinton continues to fight for a successful future. The Link-Away Rail and Air Park will soon be recognized as a certified site by the Iowa Economic Development Authority, and the jobs will return to the area. With the attraction of the logistics, sites, and manufacturers that will make this possible, there will be a renewed need for employees and connection to raw materials and distribution centers. This economic development site in Clinton is not currently connected to either the intermodal facility in Rochelle, Illinois, or the new facility that is being developed in Cedar Rapids. The new facility in Cedar Rapids is to serve a radius over 100 miles, and there's connection to the south, the west, and the north, but not to the 100 miles to the east. This certainly doesn't mean we should give up on rural Iowa as a lost cause. It means we need to come together with strategies to prevent these areas from becoming economic deserts. The targeted, value-added, and agricultural-based industry requires a connection to the rest of the world. In this country, rail is a scarce resource, and dual rail is considered a crown jewel. The importance of rail to manufacturing continues to increase exponentially, and connections to barge-served river terminals are even greater importance. One of the greatest assets of the Highway 30 corridor in eastern Iowa, other than the workforce population that resides there, is the constant proximity to the dual rail service and Mississippi River. Improving Highway 30 transportation along these rail corridors is the standard across the country for those reasons. Small towns positioned along those rail lines and a 4-lane highway will have a strategic advantage for logistics centers and industrial development. These communities will not need to reinvent the wheel, but rather emulate the success of other communities with similar assets. It makes sense to develop the areas along the main rail line within the state. Manufacturing strategies such as lean manufacturing, Sigma 6, just-in-time, and other manufacturing approaches demand a timely, cost-effective, and dependable transportation network. As recently as a few weeks ago, once again, there were concerns of Interstate 80 being closed due to flooding. While floods may be rare, although maybe not quite as rare as a 500-year flood designation might suggest, the constant volume of traffic on Interstate 80 creates safety issues that result in road closures on a regular basis. Improving Interstate 80 to 6 lanes will not address these challenges alone, and will come at a far greater cost than the improvement of Highway 30. Do we want to leave our children and grandchildren roads that are unsafe and at times impassable without a legitimate alternate route? Infrastructure affects quality of life, and investment in that infrastructure needs to be diversified. The success of communities along improved Highway 20 has already been highlighted this morning. Results of businesses moving into the area, increased residential population, all because there's improved access to employment through transportation and those jobs. Opening a section of Highway 20 took 4 lanes. The 2 4-lanes took traffic counts from 2,400 per day in 2013 to over 6,900 per day today. Improving Highway 30 to 4 lanes will intercept a large portion of the Interstate 80 traffic coming from the north and better serve the needs of Iowa residents. I think we all know the adage, if you build it, they will come. It's kind of famous for our state. We believe that is true for Highway 30 as well. It's no secret that Interstate 80 largely serves the traffic of residents and industry from outside of our state. A 6-lane Interstate 80 may be unavoidable, but to place it ahead of the Highway 30 project would effectively kill the Highway 30 improvements for decades into the future. By comparison, the cost of completing Highway 30 first would only delay Interstate 80 by a few years. Making Highway 30 as a relief route only 16 miles north of Interstate 80 makes logical sense that also serves the interest of Iowans and does not prioritize those who only pass through our state. I'd like to have some people stand as I mention the groups they represent. On behalf of people involved with economic development, trucking companies, agriculture producers, legislative leadership, county supervisors, city elected officials, business owners and leaders, industry, our chambers of commerce, district engineers, contractors, and the residents of Clinton, Cedar, and Jackson counties. We want to thank you for your time and consideration. We know you're as passionate about this state as the rest of us are. We know your dedication. We appreciate the work that you do. We're happy to have this opportunity to present our perspective to you. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dan. Excellent job.
We also had Nate Van Buren with ADM scheduled to be here, and I don't see him come in. Is Nate here? Thank you, Nate. Sorry, I didn't see you come in. I'd like to turn over the podium to Nate with ADM, if I could.
Very good.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. Thanks for inviting me here today to reiterate the importance of that ADM puts on the Highway 30 project. I know I spoke to you last year, so just to reintroduce myself, I'm Nate Von Baron. I'm the commercial manager of Archer Daniels Midland Company's corn operations in Cedar Rapids and Clinton, Iowa. Highway 30 is a critical lifeline to ADM and other employers in the Cedar Rapids and Clinton areas. And it's also the economic link for the rural communities that sit in between. Farmers, cooperatives, grain dealers, feed mills, and livestock producers use Highway 30 as the main artery to get their production to and from their destinations in a safe and timely manner. An efficient Highway 30 also allows local businesses to get back to their families and fields, and that is better for the state of Iowa. In and around Clinton, ADM can account for as many as 250 trucks along the Highway 30 corridor every day, carrying thousands of tons of corn, soybeans, and feed byproducts from our processes that support the local livestock production in the area. Not to mention the miscellaneous equipment and supplies we need to keep our operations running, and local producers also keep their operations working efficiently. In the Cedar Rapids area, well over 1 million bushels of grain a day are delivered into ADM and neighboring processing facilities. Upwards of 700 tractor trailers come in and out of our facility alone, mainly arriving via Highway 30, and the majority of our byproducts that leave from our facility leave via the Highway 30 corridor to various feed mills and livestock producers out in the state. And that's not to say anything about our employees. Just over 600 people work in the Cedar Rapids plant, and close to 1,000 people are located in the Clinton area alone. Many of them, just like many of the employees of other businesses in both cities, share Highway 30 with trucks, buses, and other local commuters every single day. And just as a reminder, all those people that come in also have to go out. Semis, cars, buses, you name it, they both come in and out of our plants in cities every day. Our businesses, such as so many others, depend on a Highway 30, which means a lot of jobs depend on an efficient Highway 30. This is why this study and ultimately this project are so important. We already see the slowdowns too often, and that's going to get worse unless action is taken. The increased yields from local production depend on an efficient Highway 30. Jobs created when businesses are looking forward, anticipating growth, or maybe when a business grows and it can't keep up with its own local demand, Highway 30 can be no different. We need to plan ahead. We need this infrastructure to support our regional growth. We can see a future not too long from now when the current 2-lane road simply will not be adequate to convey the truck volume both businesses and passengers vehicles use and depend on. We depend on Highway 30 to be safe. We depend on it to support the strategic investments ADM and other businesses make in these areas, which in turn may bolster the local economy. ADM continues to invest millions of dollars in these areas. Recently, in the Clinton and Comanche areas, we've invested several $millions in a fertilizer, barge, and loading terminal in Comanche. This should be up and running here at the end of the month. These types of investments support local businesses and the regional agricultural economy, and they depend on a Highway 30 that is meeting local needs. This study is a critical first step to making the businesses and residents who depend on Highway 30 to continue to be able to depend on it in the future. For ADM specifically, my job here today is to explain that we consider this a high priority issue. We are proud of our presence in Iowa, and Cedar Rapids and Clinton specifically. We're also proud to support the local farmers here in Iowa and northwestern Illinois. We're proud of the jobs we have created in the communities that we support. We're proud of the great work our teams are doing, and we're going to continue to support those teams with a wide 4-lane Highway 30 we feel is critical to that mission. We strongly support the Highway 30 study from Dubuque to Lisbon, as well as the overall project. And we urge the commissioners and policymakers to move forward with the study sooner rather than later. This is in the interest of Iowa agriculture and all the businesses that support it. Thanks for your time.
Appreciate it very much.